go around behind you. One more time.
Siempre, huh? Hey. I do. Brings back the old memories of the old
Is it
days.
not? Is it not?
I used to have a ton of these upstairs in the house.
Uh-huh.
Put it right here, put it right next to the.
That's fine. What design?
We got all those flavors. Probably it's Christmas.
Probably.
Reduced sale.
Yeah, I've got one.
Okay, you do, okay, that'd be great, so we all that.
No, I've been dehydrated for 2 days, so I'm making up the water with this.
Oh, my.
Listen, after Friday night,
Yeah, I thought, look, I thought about,
Benjamin, Susan, and I were in a little bathroom
Oh,
downstairs.
he was there?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my.
Yeah, they showed up at each golf course and we started heading for the safest place in the house. You see the damage next to the sportsplex?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, I saw that.
it's unreal. This,
You didn't want to cross it.
oh, wait, it's, oh, my goodness.
They said today. Yeah.
All right. It's recording. Yes. Good evening. It's April 22nd. And we're gonna be flipping papers tonight, everybody. This is different for us. I'm calling the meeting to order, and I will read the public charge. The Orange County Board of Education pledges to its citizens to conduct its business in a courteous and productive manner, showing respect for fellow board members, staff, and citizens. The board asks its citizens to conduct themselves with the same courtesy towards both school personnel and each other. As per board policy, Robert's Rules of Order will be used to conduct meetings. A moment of silence will be observed before each meeting. The board asks that you check your cell phones and other electronic devices to be certain that they are either turned off or on vibrate. That's right, Sarah Smiley, to avoid interruption of the meeting. We will now observe a moment of silence, and I will ask that you keep in mind the family of the teacher at Central Elementary that crossed over today. Thank you very much. So now, our next item of business is agenda adoption. And I will, can I get a motion to adopt the agenda?
Motion to adopt the agenda.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, I'm like, if we don't adopt this agenda, we don't have a meeting, folks. All right, so, Mr. Atherton, you wanted to pull something?
Yes, ma'am. I'd like to pull the Board Policy Committee recommendation, second reading approval.
All right, all 16? You have concerns on all 16?
Yeah, it's minor, but I think it's like a five-second
Okay.
conversation, so.
All right, okay, that's fine. We will pull that item.
Thank you.
Okay, and so now I'll entertain a motion for the consent agenda for the remaining items.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. Okay. Oh, and I didn't say where we would place it. We'll do it now. Let's do it now. Let's do it now.
Now you said.
So I would just request on all these items where rescinding policy is listed, that is removed. And just like on the school improvement version, that we just clean up where it has like semicolons instead of commas, that we just clean it up while we're doing it since it's out.
Okay.
That's the only request, is remove the
Okay.
rescinding and then put commas instead of semicolons, make it consistent.
Okay, did you get that, Patricia?
Where's the semicolons and commas that you're referring to? Just
So if you look under,
The headers?
top to header where it says date issued, it says like 10/18 semicolon, but then later it's commas, and all the other policies are commas. I'm just gonna keep it consistent.
Got it.
All right,
Thank you.
all
That's
right,
it.
all right. So we need to approve
You need
that.
a motion.
And now we need a motion. Will you
Motion
give
to
it?
approve subject to changes.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, thank you, so adopted, thank you very much.
Sorry to steal your thunder.
And
Okay.
steal your thunder.
Okay.
The next item is dual language program update. Who's gonna do that for us, Dr. Word?
So Ms. Wilson is here with Ms. Woodson, I think we can.
Come on eagerly, people. It's like they were hesitant.
Here's what I did the flash drive to.
Do you have a laptop?
I do. I'll have to boot it
Is
up.
it gonna work?
It will work.
Sorry.
Yes.
Oh, that's okay.
We were trying to find a way to do this without being online.
Okay.
Oh, geez.
Ooh.
Wow, see,
Oh my, look at Todd Jones.
Why we purchased highly durable.
So don't worry.
modeling for you.
We do have insurance.
You do bumper to bumper, right?
So before Ms. Wilson gets started, I think
Okay.
we just wanted to bring before you tonight an update on this program. And we've been very excited with the work that's gone on at New Hope. And I know Ms. Wilson will introduce her team from New Hope to you as well. But I know the board's had great interest in this program, and we just wanted to come back to you and kind of give you a late in the school year update on the progress of the program and moving forward from there.
Oh, and there's a teacher of the year coming forward. I've seen you on commercials on television. I know. No, you feel like a celebrity now.
I haven't seen the commercials.
Oh, you haven't? Oh, I've seen you 3 times. Have you all seen him on television? Mhm. It's just a regular, it's a Capital Ford commercial. Selling cars. Yeah. They announced, and the Orange County School Teacher of the Year, and then he gives a nice smile. He doesn't have a real big speaking part.
Oh, it's there, it's already,
So I just stand here to move it, right?
I'll get you.
All right. Good evening.
Good
Thank you for
evening.
having us. I'm not gonna sit with you. I'll just click the buttons for you. So we are here to update you on kind of what's been happening in dual language this year. And you guys have heard me talk about it. You know my passion around this work. But I did bring the 2 teachers that have led this implementation this year. So Mr. Luis Rios, who you all should know as the Orange County Teacher of the Year currently. And then Holly Wallace is our New Hope Teacher of the Year for the coming year. So we're gonna, very cool, thank you. So we're gonna kind of just jump in. They're gonna share a little bit about kind of what happens day to day in the classroom, a little bit of data that we have around how students are doing. They're gonna talk and share some photos and specifics about learning experiences that students have had. I'm gonna update you kind of on some next steps, and then we also have some community and parent representatives here to share a little bit about how the program has impacted their world. So we'll turn it over to you guys.
So before we jump into the data on the next slide, we kind of wanted to talk about the structures of what our classrooms look like on a day-to-day basis. So our day starts off with a circle where we talk about, we work in social skills, we work in just some different things that are going on in their lives. We'll start off with a sentence starter. And that's just to get that communication going with the class, get them learning about each other. And then I jump into Letterland, and that's where they're learning their letters and sounds and putting together words. And then in your class, when I bring Letterland, you're doing?
I'm doing a program called Estrellita, which also is letter knowledge and programs and putting them together to promote writing and reading skills.
So that's really the only thing that's different as far as program-wise. So it's been really nice to have all the same programs that we're doing besides the, obviously the phonics have to be different. And then we jump into reading workshop, and our reading workshop, we start off with a mini lesson, and then we have the kids, they have their own bag of books, and they have about 5 English books and 5 Spanish books in their bags. And when they go off, they sit back to back, and they get out their reading mats, and they have, in my room, they stack them up to where they have English and a couple Spanish books. And so they have the flexibility of reading Spanish and English every single day, and then his class, they'll have more Spanish but some English. So we're super organized in the way that they're accessing text throughout the day. So when they're sitting back to back, they're independent reading, and then when we say it's buddy reading time, they turn together and they share books together, and they also choose a skill that they're gonna work on for that day. So it might be, we're gonna work on sight word work today, we're gonna find all the sight words in our book, or it might be, we're gonna act out our book today. So when you walk into our room, it's never quiet. They're always like working and acting out stuff, having fun. And am I missing anything with that structure as far as reading workshop goes? And I know when we come back together, we share, they do iPads. So if they're on an iPad for the day, we have to be really structured in the way we do iPads because we have 24 kids. So we have like a rotation. They know when their rotation is coming. They have it 2 days in a row, and they can access English and reading, or English and Spanish books on that app also. And then after reading workshop, or after where they break out and read, we come back together and we usually have a share session where they share like a sticky note where they drew the setting, or they share a sticky note where they did characters, or even just talk about something interesting in their books. And then we come together and we do shared reading. And shared reading, we do a lot of work on sight words and just those reading aspects that go in. And we use a lot of data because we realize how important that shared reading is, because we do only have them, I only have them like 2 to 3 times a week, and same with him. So that's one time that we try to be very close about, like, oh, you're doing this book, let me see if I can find a book that's kind of close to that, or we try to bridge that vocabulary in that time too. I think we're ready for this slide. So in our BOY composite, this was our Dibbles composite, dual language students started off with 50% proficiency, and then we wanted to compare it to the traditional students in other kindergarten classes, so they were started out at 36%. So we realized that dual language students, and we have 48 students, they came in a little bit more proficient than the traditional student. And then MOY, it went up to 52%, and the traditional students went up to 41.9%. So some of the things that, I wanted to tell you some of the things that go into that score. So we have the first sound fluency, which is where they're looking at a word and telling you the first sound of that word. And then we have letter naming fluency. So they're trying to name as many letters as they can.
I just wanted to interject. BOY is beginning of the year, MOY is middle of the year.
Okay.
Sorry,
Okay.
I'm sorry about that.
Boy.
And when we did MOY, middle of the year data, letter naming fluency was still there, first sound fluency and segmenting was added, and nonsense word fluency was added. And so segmenting is when they break apart the word, and nonsense word fluency is when they sound out words that are just kind of thrown together. They're not really real words. And yeah, so Amber had kind of updated us on some research on some of the trends with dual language and what
So
that
if you
looks
look
like.
at the research that's done by Thomas and Collier, who in the dual language world are very well known and respected. They're actually currently working here in North Carolina out of NC State, examining some of the dual language programs in North Carolina. They would tell you to look at data trending in kindergarten and not expect your dual language students to maintain, but actually expect a dip in proficiency as they enter because of the languages that they're acquiring. And we have not seen that trend yet. We will continue to monitor that. And if you guys would like, I could share kind of what data trend we can expect K-12 with dual language, if that would be of interest. Their research is probably the most solid that's out there in that regard.
And then the next slide with TRC, it does dip a little bit, but we see that as a grade level, just because of the jump from RB to B, there's a lot more sight words, there's a lot more words to sound out, and they are just now kind of starting to acquire that letter sound knowledge and the sight words. So that's something with that data so we went from 52 to 33%. But we have really taken the data, and Ms. Wilson has helped us analyze that data during our student talk meetings and to figure out what do we need to do as a grade level, but also as a dual language program to really hit the skills that they need to do. And that's why I'm saying when we do shared reading, we do our instruction in reading, we're really zoning in on those skills because we do only have them 2 to 3 times a week. So we realize that we've really, when they're with us, we've got to give it our all and do everything that we can. So yeah, with the TRC, they are doing some retail.
So
I'm sorry,
TRC
explain what
is
that is a little bit.
it's part of M class and it's text reading and comprehension. So students actually receive a level text, they read through it, we record the miscues, the words that they read correctly, and that helps us analyze like what kind of errors they're making, and so we can decide what kind of instruction we can provide for them. And then afterwards, we ask them to retell the story to see what they understood. And then at the higher levels, there's also comprehension questions.
And one thing we noticed this year that we weren't aware of when we were testing was there was questions about the main idea and things like that we've been like driving now that we know that that's in the questions. And so a lot of the things we've been working on is retail, but then knowing that there's different things that are asked in the questions, we're also knowledgeable that we need to, or aware of the fact that we need to prep them on those things too.
So this is middle of the year data for my side, for the Spanish instruction. So we only started middle of the year data because of when we went to observe other programs, that's something that we learned from them, that you start testing at middle of the year. To give students that grace as they enter and start learning a new language. And so you'll see on the left, on my left, there were the composite proficiency for middle of the year. Most of the students were falling below proficiency and far below proficiency. And then for the text reading and comprehension, the same as well. 97, there were no students necessarily at grade level, which would mean that they would have need to be reading a C, a level C
For
text
Spanish.
in Spanish by January. And so that was just, for me, it was really eye-opening to see how much more work we were gonna have to put in on both ends.
How much front loading, I feel like, of what the expectation for C is when they're just learning. And you had said that you hadn't even finished all of your phonetic stuff yet.
And so, that was another big eye-opening moment of thinking how to pace the phonics program, Estrellita, along with the expectations of the reading curriculum. At that point, I hadn't finished introducing all the letter sounds in Spanish. Because I always tried to be as faithful as possible to the pacing, but now knowing, okay, we have to be mindfully quicker for next year.
And we also recognize the need to stagger the phonics programs. And so next year, we will put Estrellita about 2 weeks in front of Letterland so that those units are gonna be more easily bridged, and we can connect across the 2 languages. But those are just things that we're kind of figuring out on the fly.
And I think the reading workshop, the model that we've used has really helped because while kids are out independent and buddy reading, we're conferring, we're doing strategy groups. And even though MOI data might not have shown it, we're seeing a ton of growth. And MOI in general, it's like I said, it's a big jump. So we're really happy with the growth that we're seeing and the letter sounds, everybody's getting their letter sounds, everybody's getting those sight words in both languages, and it's truly amazing to see the growth and see them learning so much.
And another thing to point out was that the majority of students were reading at a level A or reading behaviors RB. And the jump from that into the very next level, it does require a lot more sight words. In Spanish, it requires a lot more ability in decoding, because everything is phonetic. And so right now, we'll get to show you the kind of phonetic work that we are doing in Estrellita now.
So these are super cute videos that you're not gonna be able to watch. But when you have access to the presentation, I think when it's uploaded for you, if you go down to the presenter notes section, we did put the links in there for you, and they're labeled English and Spanish so you can see. This was an opportunity for you to see the Bridges curriculum in Number Corner in the Spanish side and the English side, and see how closely the structures are mirrored. The routines are very, very similar for the students, so their experience every day is very consistent, just like it would be for students that are staying in the same classroom every day. But they do not repeat content. So Luis never teaches what Holly taught. She picks up the next day with that next lesson. So yeah, so take time to watch the videos. They're super cute, just so you can kind of feel out what that would look like and how similar units play out in each
I can
classroom.
speak more to that for just a second. So in Number Corner structures, when we meet at Number Corner, our first thing, every calendar has a theme. So one theme, it's 1 month was 3D shapes. This month is weight, length.
Measurement.
Yeah, measurement. Good thing of the word. All of it, in case you need to learn so. So every month has a theme, and the kids are asked to really think deeply about those things, and the activities are really awesome. But something that we do, which is really cool, on that 100th day of school, we all came together as a cohort and counted to 100 in English and counted to 100 in Spanish. And it was bringing tears to my eyes because I never get to see that side over there. So it was really cool to see that and to like hear every single person in that room. And they were like teaching me, like, say it like this. So we do the counting, we count dots, we count by tens, and we do a lot of data comparison and things like that.
So this is part of Estrellita. This is the kind of work that we're doing now. At the top side of the yellow folder is the syllables that we're learning. So students are learning to blend the consonants with the letter A and the sound, the letter sound A in Spanish. And that's setting them up to decode any kind of syllable when we change the vowel. And so we've really spent a lot of time in just with the letter A and blending with the letter A. But I'm pretty sure that when we start going through other vowels, it will be really quickly, because the point is for them to be able to blend here with something familiar. And so we've also gone a step further to bringing those syllables together and to start forming words. Yeah, so this is a fun game that they work together. And this is one of my proudest moments in my classroom. So at the front is one of my students.
Native Spanish speaker.
A native Spanish speaker. And at the beginning of the year, during our reading units of study, what we showed students a lot was how to tell a story. So they got a sense of story elements from a very developmental point of how they were entering kindergarten. And so one day during the transition from Number Corner to the rug to talk about writing, he picked up the book himself and he sat at the front of the room and he started reading aloud to the class. And you see, this picture is perfect because it captures how interested the kids are with his reading. And he read it all in Spanish. The book was completely in Spanish, so he read aloud to everyone, and everyone was so entertained by it. But it speaks to also the modeling that Holly and I have gotten to do through our reading units of study as literate people that enjoy reading and
books.
share reading.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And they're just excited to share all the time. Even with they bring Spanish books to my room, and I show that growth mindset of I'm gonna give this book a try. I'm gonna read in Spanish, and they help me out. And I always compare it to you're learning, I'm learning, And they just love books in general and talking about the facts that they learned. I love hearing about things they're doing in his room and so on. This is a project we did, a STEM project we did as a dual language cohort, and we had talked, it was one of those months with our number corner where we had talked about 3D shapes and was able to connect it to some of the science that we were doing. And so they built an animal shelter using our marshmallows and toothpicks, and the rule was that it had to stand up. So it was really fun, and we worked a lot on the vocab that went around that and took pictures of each project so that both cohorts could see the pictures and talk about them and get that vocab out there. It was something we decided to do as a mix between science and our language experience time. Oh, this is my favorite. Super Readers is like my favorite unit that we taught from the units of study. But this study is where they are learning about the different powers that they have, whether it's picture power, pointer power. And this is where they really start noticing, like, oh, books have words, they have spaces, things like that. So at the end of the unit, they created these capes, and we, as a cohort, did that. And it was really fun, and they truly believed that they were superheroes, super readers, and we still refer to that all the time. And even when we had our 5th grade buddies with us, they were like, I'm a super reader. They were telling, look at these powers I've got. And they were pointing to the anchor chart. It's that, the kids are like, the 5th graders are like, what powers? And they're pointing to the anchor chart. And then here's the example of literally where we like to dress up as our characters and build words together. This was a picture of my assistant working in the library, in the makerspace with the B-bots. And the B-bots are used for coding. So we mixed in the coding with number ID, and we had learned that number identification was something that at the time our data was showing that they were struggling with. So you use the B-bot, and they say, I want to go to number 22, and they would program the B-bot to go to the number 22. And this speaks to how awesome it is to have our assistants full-time to work with us and be with kids. And with having 24 and having that many and being able to provide this kind of experience, but also the experience that we get in the classroom. And the needs that they have is just so awesome. So. And we've done global at New Hope this year, which has been so awesome. I've enjoyed really learning with the kids and learning about the world. The kids are learning about themselves. And this is a picture where we studied the needs in the world, and the kids created a goal on how they would like to help the world. So some people are like, I'd like to build schools in places that don't have schools, or I'd like to learn to recycle, things like that. So the glasses they made were global glasses, and they were telling everybody they can see the world better, or the world new with their global glasses. So. And this is just an example. This was the beginning, like Mr. Rios had said, where they were getting a sense of text and a sense of story. And this is where they had the big story books, and they were working on talking like the characters and kind of telling the story. So they had the reading buddies. You see the little monkey. They were reading to their little stuffed animals. And that one.
There's a video linked there in the black box for you.
Yeah. That was a 5th grade buddy video where they were reading with the buddies.
So you can enjoy that on your own.
And right here is an example of how we have bridged vocabulary this year. So a lot of the times we would take a text, and this was polar bear, what do you hear? And we had bridged the names of the animals. So with lion, I put Leon next to it, or Leon, what do you say? You can help me out. Leon. So we looked at how those words looked similar and how they look different, and we tried to, you explained it well.
Bridging is something that we have done intentionally by putting vocabulary in English and Spanish side by side. So students can get a sense of, well, what's similar about the language and what's different. Especially, in our earlier units, brown bear, like red bird, students noticed how the adjective, the color, was in a different order. And so it's a really great way for kids to start tapping into language knowledge very early on.
And the way it sounds and the way it's spelled.
Mm-hmm. Yes. to start noticing cognates and all.
And the bridge is an area that we have had to intentionally kind of work and focus on, to build in, because with dual language, when you look at the pacing of the units, something has to come out in order for that space to exist, to do the intentional bridge that has to happen for the content to cross across the languages, and they have a chance to take knowledge that was acquired in one language and apply it in the second language. And so we have had to kind of play with what can we kind of take out, or how can we build this in so that it's very intentional, because the bridging that happens every day for students and the bridge are very different in terms of the curriculum planning, the structure for that.
Here was an example, on the left there's the cups. That was an example of games that we've created in order to address those areas in the TRC. And this was another thing that we talked with our student data talk, was we noticed as a team and the dual language that sight words in general, when we're bumping up to the level C's, D's, you need a lot of sight words. So we've done a lot of work on incorporating games every single day where kids are seeing those. And over here is a geometry sort that we did with 3D shapes.
So can you talk a little bit, Holly, about what are some of the skills that are required of students to access or to demonstrate proficiency of a level C?
Oh, okay.
What does that mean?
Yeah. So within a level C, they have to decode. So decoding words, segmenting words. So if it's the word cat, they've got to be able to sound out the word cat. Being able to, and the words in a level C, there are a lot more sight words for them to see. So in the middle of the year, they wanted them to know words like with and then, and they have to have that digraph, which is like the TH, the CH. They've got to be able to decode sight words. They have to be able to retell a story, make sense of the story.
Everything isn't picture supported.
Right. There's no lead-in. Also, that's another thing that's changed. Last year, with our new M-Class kit, it's a little different. Last year, we were able to kind of lead them into a book, which is, you would say, the dog can run, and they would take off with the book after that. Now it's like you hand them the book and they get started on their own. So they've got to like immediately know those sight words because their errors start like right then. And this is just my cute little Eddie elephant. Like I said, we love to dress up in Letterland. They just love it. So I have a couple props that they wear when we're introducing the letters. And this is just an example of the awesome curriculum that we got this year with Bridges. A number corner, as we've spoke before, is attached to this Bridges program. And right here what you're seeing is, we call them workstations. And workstations we introduce, they're games, and they change like one or two a week, and they come with skills. So this was a while back. Yeah, we were talking about patterns. And it's been really awesome to just know that the same thing is happening in our classrooms. Literally, it's the same thing, they're just learning in Spanish. So it's really seamless for them.
The Bridges curriculum has everything already readily available for us in Spanish, so that is really helpful for Luis because it's one thing he doesn't have to go and create. He just decides which resources he needs to pull down off the website. So that's been really helpful, not having to create all of
supports,
that.
because they have Senate starter supports and things that we make sure that I have printed in my room, that he has printed in his room.
So there's definitely like that lens on English language development built into the program.
Absolutely, and modification.
Yeah.
And it's just an example of playing Kahoot. We love some Kahoot with sight words and retelling, and they are always asking me about some Kahoot.
My son asked to play Kahoot and hold
Yeah.
on, buddy, that's
It's-
not like a one-person game.
We use the iPads.
We're not.
We use the iPads, and they're playing on it. They look and they try to choose the right answer. They do a lot of teamwork with that.
So one of our big goals as a program has not only to teach content and language, but also to sustain and support culture. And so one of the experiences that we got to do early on in the year was to create a display for Dia de los Muertos. Students got to bring in a picture of a deceased parent as is traditional, so they could kind of get a sense of that tradition in a Latin American country, in a Central American country, So it was really beautifully tied into giving kids an experience of being part of another culture, while being here at home.
So they brought in pictures of their family members and things like that, and we took pictures of the items, and we showed all the cohorts, and we came up with vocab in English and Spanish for those objects that they brought in.
And that was another opportunity for them to bridge and to see language in both languages. And another part of sustaining culture through our program has been, this was to start us off in the beginning of the year. Each kid got to bring in 5 or so items from home that represents their home culture. And they got to share it not only with their peers, but also with other parents and family members that came in that day. And that was a great parent.
We had a real big turnout for that.
So I will tell you, the times that the dual language program has invited their parents to come in for like an informant is kind of what we call them, they have more parent participation than other groups of students that invite parents to come in. It's been really amazing to watch the community support and parent support around being involved and really developing this cohort kind of family.
Yes,
All of those children, all 48 of them, they're all like one big kind of group, and it's really neat to see the connections that they have.
Well, and even the informal things that we do when we have like projects that we do, we have a lot of parent support of like donating things and sending in things for us. And this is just a picture of us having a little Thanksgiving togetherness with all 48 of us, and we had done some read alouds, and that was fun, passing out all those juices and cookies and all that. And can I have some more?
So just a few kind of next steps to update you where we're going from here. We are in the process of hiring 2 international teachers. I don't know if you've heard or not, but Luis is leaving us. We are excited for him, but at the same time, it is sad for us because he has been so crucial in this work. We have hired one of our international teachers. She'll be coming from Bogota, Colombia. I'm super excited about that. That's been a new kind of experience for me. My assistant principal, Mr. Dodson, is more familiar as he had been in a school that had a splash program for 4 years. And so he's kind of led me through the online platform and kind of all that process. But it's been pretty good so far. We have some more interviews scheduled next week, so I'm looking forward to that. We have already worked with Ms. Woodson to get materials and curriculum resources. We recognized for this past year, we needed that stuff earlier so that we can go ahead and get everything set up and that we can spend some time in the summer. Again, kind of building out that curriculum structure. What's the pacing gonna be? Where can we build in the bridge? How can we make sure that we're connecting those experiences back to the traditional classrooms so that we're not creating a school within a school or a program within our school? So that's been really important, and we appreciate that support. And then Dr. Wirt and I discussed how we're gonna get baseline data around evaluation of our effectiveness with this program and implementation, and how we're gonna continue to be reflective in our practice and really thinking about what are the things that we're doing well and what are the things that we have to continue to improve upon. So the Center for Applied Linguistics has developed a guiding principles for dual language education, and they have 7 strands, and I've listed them there for you, where they have developed ultimately a rubric that gives you an opportunity to evaluate kind of key indicators in each of those sections and place your program on the scale. So it's minimal, partial, full alignment, or exemplary alignment. And so it's a tool for us to be honest with ourselves. It's a tool for us to complete and utilize as we develop our school improvement plan. Definitely dual language and global. Even though it doesn't affect every cohort in our grade level in our school right now, it is something that we're embracing as a school community. It's something that everybody has to learn and grow in. And so it's important that we're very transparent as a school in our school improvement team. So you will probably see that in our school improvement goals going into next year. How are we gonna use that data to drive continual improvement? So I will share those with you as we complete them. We're starting to work through, and it's long, but it'll be worth it, so that we have data from the get-go to be reflective on and think about if we ever wanted to replicate, how would we go about that? and making sure that we are tracking the evidences that led to success or the things that maybe got in our way. All right, so this is the next exciting part. We have some community members here with us this evening. So I'm gonna ask Ms. Claudia Guerrero Mendoza to come and join me. So Claudia, as she's coming, Claudia is a mom at our school. She has 2 boys there.
You can sit down.
Yeah.
Yeah, that feels better.
Yeah. So Claudia is a mom at New Hope, but she is also an FSA navigator. And one of her children went through FSA camp with the first cohort of children, and then she became a navigator. And now she supports lots of families in our community. And then hopefully we will get her youngest daughter in like, what, 2 more years?
2 years.
2 more years we'll have her. So we hope that she goes through dual language too. But Claudia is just gonna share a little bit about her heart in terms of what has dual language meant and her role as a navigator, and what does she hear in the community?
Well, thank you for having me here. It's been great this year with my parents. I have 2 families with 2 children in the dual language, and they love it. Like, they see how much they're bonding with the kids at home, and these families have like a language barrier. So before it was really hard for them, like with older kids, to be able to help with homework and things like that. And this year has been new, and they are so happy for the kids. They are helping the kids at home. They are reading more, and they're just very excited to be part of this program.
That's great.
So good.
Thank you, and I think it means a lot to have also not only the writing, reading, but also the fact that kids are learning about their own culture and be proud of it.
Yes.
So it's huge. Thank you so much for
Thank
that.
you. Thank you for taking the time to come and talk to us, Claudia.
Oh, no
And
problem.
in the FSA, the Family Success Alliance, that we're really pleased that the county, that we're in one of the zones, and we hope that they would create another zone for one of our school districts sometime. Yeah. Thank you so much for coming out tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Claudia. All right, so my next guests are Jose and Rhonda Morales. If you guys will come sit with me. As they're coming, Rhonda is also an FSA navigator,
Okay.
and she is new to that position. But they are also parents of the program. So their daughter, Esmeralda, is in the dual language program. And I think she is, I wanted them to come and share because I think their perspective is a little bit different in the fact that Melly, that's what she goes by, sorry, same kid I'm talking about. She grows up in a home where she's exposed to 2 different cultures and 2 different languages, and now she also has that experience at school. So I just wanted to give them a chance to kind of talk about what that's like.
So I can say that I really was pleased that dual language was being offered and that she was picked and she's gonna continue. It's been really interesting. Everything that Ms. Wallace was talking about up here, we talk about at home, so I can definitely say that yes, I think there's more of a bonding experience.
Mhm.
And also I feel like too, for her to have, again, 2 cultures at home, that it really helps to have the dual language back that up. And she doesn't speak, I'll be honest with you, she doesn't speak a lot of Spanish at home, but when she does, it's very clear, and she knows exactly what she's talking about, and she knows what he's talking about, and she gets me to read in Spanish, and I'll be honest with you, I'm not that great at it. I keep begging, I'm like, please read to her, because but she understands. I ask her, do you understand? Oh yeah, perfectly. And talking with Miss Wallace, she said it was amazing. She walked in there to Mr. Rios's room and she's speaking fluently. I don't know how to explain it, and her critical thinking skills to me are amazing. She thinks differently. I have 2 older kids as well, so I can see big differences and how she approaches situations. It's really amazing. So, yeah, I've been very pleased, very happy it was offered.
Yes, he said, if I have to.
Just looking at me like.
Your turn.
Yeah, my name is Jose, so I'm from Mexico, so I'm really pleased that you give us the opportunity to just speak to you about this program. I think it's an amazing, amazing opportunity for the kids, to learn another language from, like what I heard about them, what it says is important to learn about tradition and stuff like that, so I think it just, in particular, for me, the language is important, somebody that has those gifts, they just have the mentality to keep with the language. I think it's awesome, because it maintains the brain, and alive, so learning as many languages you can, I think that before, when I met my wife, I didn't read that much in English, so to me, seeing my daughter to know that her culture and here in the United States and know my culture, and my wife told me about it, like, read to her, please, you gotta let her know the titles, you gotta really know it. And I started doing it more and more, so, but I told her one time, like, I know that Melly speaks very fluently, but when she comes home, she don't wanna talk to us because we just English like an American here. And sometimes I speak to her and I say, like, what are you doing in Spanish and stuff like that, something that it goes, the brain is doing and embrace that conversation, and she said, nothing, I just here, sit down on the couch. But talking to her in Spanish, and she just responding in English, and like, my daddy talks to me in English, so I gotta just respond to him. But now that he talks in Spanish, I gotta talk to him in English, so she maintains the culture, but, I think it's a awesome, idea this that, every kid from every country that comes and learn, about America, especially, about the freedom that we have in here, it's just, really important, so.
Right.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you very much. Thank you for sharing.
Good job. So our last parent that I brought with us this evening is Maricela Contreras. And she is the mother of an adorable little Luis that is in dual language. And again, she is just here to share a little bit about her heart, what it's like to be a mom of a Latino student in the program, and kind of what that experience has been.
Well, I love for my son to be in the dual language, because even though that he speaks Spanish, and now like I want him to be able to read in Spanish, to to talk more in Spanish, and I just love the dual language because I think it's helping him. And at night, he wants us to read a book, and like when we read, he kind of knows the words that like in Spanish, like the ones we're saying. And yeah, well, I don't speak a lot of English, so I just try to do my best. But I think I like for him to be in there, because I want to be able to read more in Spanish.
Yeah.
Because I think for the English part, he's doing great. But I want more Spanish for him.
Yeah. That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You did a great job. Thank you. Thank you for coming in tonight.
Have any questions
Okay.
while we're here?
Right, yes, we do.
Okay.
Just an observation, and I just wanted to publicly thank Luis, because I'm sad for Orange County Schools, but I'm happy for him. He brought a very valuable missing piece to the school system, and he's gonna be much missed. It is very important for little children, I mean little children, to have role models, and we don't have enough role models. And the dual language thing, to me, rings a clear bell. My mother spoke only Greek, and I had to go to Greek school after the regular English public school. So I fully understand what you guys are talking about. And I can still recite the Greek national anthem, and I was interested in hearing it. That's part of the culture, that's part of the tradition. And I said to Luis earlier this evening, as he goes off to Colorado, "En boca cerrada no entran moscas." In a closed mouth, flies do not enter. And thank God he didn't have a closed mouth, that he was given a voice, and he has shared his voice with all these wonderful people at New Hope Elementary. So Luis, thank you for everything you've done.
Right, yes.
Just have a quick comment, which is thank you so much for this presentation, and thank you for bringing families to talk to us. Thank you. I really appreciated that. And that I'm just so impressed by all the reflection in this first year. This is really hard work, and the thing you were sharing about, let's track what we've learned, right? And how should we shift this next year, but also, next week, and it's just that level of reflection is, I know that that's kind of what teaching is, but the level required, what you're trying to do is so complex, but it has so much potential. So I just really love that you're all approaching it with that attitude, and just really excited for everything you've learned in the first year, and I'm excited for this program to continue.
Yes, Will.
So, as well, thank you all so much for coming in, also the teachers as well. I was curious, since this was kind of a new approach, what's the one thing that surprised you through the process, right? Because, or one or two, because I remember when y'all first came in and said, this is what we think we're gonna do, and this is how we're gonna approach it. So I'm just curious, what was one or two things that you were like, wow, we just didn't expect this? And I don't mean bad, I mean just surprised you.
I would just say in general, there's just so many things that go into the structures in place, and how, we have this plan of this is what it's gonna look like, but when you really get into it, there are, just our timing. There was a point where we had timers set on our watches to make sure that I'm spending the same amount of time in this area, or that we're transitioning at the same time. And that was something that Ms. Wilson had brought to us of, we were reflecting with her, and we were talking about how, we get super animated with what we're doing, but then what happens is a class might get more of this time than this class. So we literally had I never thought that I would be setting timers to make sure that he's like, are your timer set today? All right, we're good. So things like that, and just the partnerships, I thought that was that has been huge for our kids, the partnerships and the collaboration, and just the community feel, how supportive everyone is of dual language. I knew that we would have support, but the amount of love and support that we've had has been really awesome. But yeah, just those little things. There's just so many little things that go into it.
How about you?
For me, I know obviously I went in with the intention of having children develop language, but every time, especially with Melly, just students coming in from a predominantly English background, those moments when it clicks for them, when that were automatic, sitting with them at car riders, and a child she's telling me about her story, and there's a Spanish word in her story. It was really cool to see it just sinking in for each kid, and each kid kind of just having their own moment of brilliance with the language.
I would say that too, walking into his room and when he was out doing some things for here, I was walking in trying to support, and oh my goodness, just to hear the kids just spit out Spanish fluently, I was like, oh my goodness, it threw me off, because in my class, I hear them talking to each other, but academically hearing them talk with each other and participating in the lessons, it was beautiful, and I wish I just had my camera right there, but those light bulb moments, even for me, I'm like, oh my goodness, it's working, it's awesome.
That's wonderful to hear, and also I appreciated you talking about how important your teacher assistants are as well in those classes.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
I can't say that.
24 kindergartners been very discontent at times. So, I will tell you too, I meant to say this a minute ago, our lottery is already full, and we have already started, well, let me say that differently. the pool of candidates for the lottery exceeds the 48 slots that we have. And so we're super excited to be going into that already full, and we're still a couple, a week or more away from the actual lottery, so that feels really good.
All right, thank you, Amber. Thank you, everyone who came in tonight to share the progress of the dual language program. It's clearly flourishing, and we appreciate all that you do. Thank you. The next item.
You don't have to stay.
Oh, yeah, we'll give you an opportunity to scoot out. You don't have to stay until 10 o'clock. But you can, bye. All right, the next item on the agenda is pre-K tuition.
Thank you, Ms. Stevens. This is a follow-up to a recent presentation we did at a committee meeting.
That's right.
I'll turn it over to Ms. Brown and we'll get a recommendation in front of you.
All right. Good evening, board members.
Good evening.
And superintendent work staff in our community. I am always delighted to be able to come before the board and talk about pre-K because as a former elementary principal and as a mama, I know how important early childhood education is. So this evening, we want to talk with you a little bit about tuition opportunities in our pre-K classrooms for the 2019-2020 school year. We had the pleasure, Ms. Perry Kaji and I, to present at a recent student achievement meeting all about our pre-K program. And at that time, we were able to talk with the board about some of our desires and goals. One of the things that I want to bring up is tuition slots for our Title I pre-K classrooms. The reason that we are thinking about providing an opportunity for tuition slots is because right now, access to our pre-K program is really contingent on lots of families that have a financial need. We want to build and provide access to other families in our community for several reasons. One of those reasons is we can hook families early and help them to see all the wonderful opportunities that Orange County Schools provides because we want those families to choose us and stay with us. Another reason is because we continue to have eligible families on our waiting list, and we want to make sure that we're doing everything we can to provide opportunities for those families to be in our pre-K program, and it creates some balance in the classroom. The folks that would be eligible for a pre-K tuition slot would be any family who has completed the registration process, and we would work hand in hand with our student assignment department to make sure that we had a lottery process that was equitable and providing access for families. We have worked collaboratively with Chapel Hill Carrboro City Schools and talked with their pre-K department because we want to make sure that we're learning from good strategies, we're sharing what we're doing, we're hearing what they're doing, and based on conversations with them as well as the Orange County Partnership for Young Children, we are proposing tuition slots, 4 slots per classroom at $1,000 per month. We have also done research on the market rate for pre-K programs within the county to make sure that we are thinking about that in conjunction with our plans. We have had tuition slots in Orange County schools previously, but no tuition slots were available this school year. And we have really thought intentionally about what we would do with this revenue, and we have several things that we think would help our program. Number one, we would use this funding in conjunction with our Title I dollars and our NC Pre-K dollars to provide professional development, not only for our staff, but for child care providers within the county, because we know that even if those families are not currently with us, they may be with us in the near future, and we want those teachers and teacher assistants to have research-based practices, to understand the latest curriculum programs, and to know the resources that we're using so that they can use those same strategies in their programs. We also want to maintain our excellent ratio of teachers and teacher assistants to students in the classroom. That's something that is awesome because right now we have 1 teacher and 2 TAs per classroom. We also are thinking about opportunities for extended care because we have many working families, and right now we don't have those extended hours for our pre-K program. So in the near future, we would like to extend care to about 5:30 p.m. so that families who are working are able to have their student participate in pre-K and not leave at that regular dismissal time. Ms. Perry-Kaji, is there anything you'd like to add? Okay.
Great job.
So at this time, if the board has questions, we are open to those questions.
Okay, Yes, Sarah?
I have just a clarification about, so how this would work. So it sounds like, so there are Title I families still on a waiting list for the classrooms, and would we have more classrooms? I think I'm not understanding like logistically.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Not yet. So, the numbers in each room are a little different, but for a room of 18 children, we would look at 5 slots that were designated for Title I, 5 slots that were designated for NC Pre-K, and very often those slots are the same. So Title I is looking at children who score below the 50th percentile on our Dial 4 assessment, those that need a boost before they go to kindergarten. NC Pre-K is looking for children in need, but also families who make below the 75% income for North Carolina, based on family size. So we would have 5, we have 4 EC slots that are designated, and then we would have 4 tuition slots.
And so by doing this, we would have more classrooms in total?
So what we're trying to do is provide some more access, because certain families right now are not necessarily able to be eligible for pre-K. So this would create additional opportunities.
I will say that this year, we started our application process in March. And as of today, we have more tuition families, those that make over that 75%, than we have had since I've been here. This is my 5th year. So I'm not sure what that's about, but those numbers are up.
Ms. Roberts?
Following up on what you were saying, Sarah, and Kylie, correct me if I'm wrong, it's basically that we have a waiting list of students who would currently qualify for non-tuition slots if we had more classroom capacity.
That's true. Yeah.
That's one where I've always felt that we need to take a look at and see if we can expand our pre-K to do both. I mean, I recognize the need for the tuition slots, so we've got a broad group of students in it. But I think we really need to have a discussion about doing both, making sure that we have the classes to address our full waiting list. Because I think it's a great way to pull students into our school system. But we also have a waiting list for students that would qualify for it. Okay. So I think we need to do both.
For this school year, 2018, 2019, we have approximately 80 children on the waiting list.
Right.
Motion to approve.
Sorry, I have.
Yeah, well, see, he wasn't at the meeting, so that's all I'm
We've
about
already
to
heard it,
say.
yeah, I'm sorry.
Most of us were at the meeting, and we had all the questions. Yes, Will?
So the first one I had was the afternoon care, is that gonna be for a fee, or is that included in the 1,000?
Included in the cost.
Okay, and then would that be available to people that qualified under non-tuition, and they would pay a fee, or would they just be eligible for that?
So.
Do you see what I mean? Cause I know that's one of the challenges people have.
Through the Orange County Partnership for Young Children, there is subsidy money for extended care.
Okay.
So that would be separate for the families that make below that 75% income.
And then say for people that make above that, but they're eligible for that, they could purchase those services for the aftercare as well?
We would be able to work that out, yeah. That would-
Well, no, I mean.
Oh, if they're not a tuition? slot?
Right, it's not a tuition slot, and say you're EC, and then you wanted that, is that an option? I mean, there's so many combinations here, I'm just trying to
I don't
think
know if
through.
we've gotten that far yet, but, yeah.
We would have to try to figure out an equitable way to make.
You're guaranteed you're gonna be asked that.
Okay.
So the next one I'm gonna ask you is a little off topic, but I think it's appropriate. So how has the TAs not available on teacher work days affected the pre-K program?
They have been missed. I think that the team building has been affected by not having them included in the trainings and just in conversation within the individual classroom teams.
Thank you.
Okay, so getting back on topic,
There you go.
we, this is an action item.
You got your motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Adopted, thank you very.
One of us.
All right, so, okay. Thank you, so the next,
The
we have?
motion.
dress, student dress code policy, first reading.
So tonight before you is the result of some really hard work on the part of the policy committee. Policy 4316, our student dress code policy. Just to reiterate, as it was also reiterated in the abstract, the board certainly preserved the hard work that was done on this policy in 2017. So tonight, before you are primarily some additions and changes to the policy that were originally suggested by the committee. We reviewed a previous draft that was considered by the Wake County Public School System. The committee had some really good dialogue. I guess the best place, and certainly I would defer to any member of the community, but where I'd intended to start, if it's okay, is the list that's in blue. That's really the first major change that happens to the policy. This is an area that provides some additional specificity to our dress code. I will say, as requested by the committee, I did ask for feedback from our principals. I got feedback from about 6 or so. Their initial comments were very positive. They feel like the specificity is helpful. There wasn't a lot of, there was a couple spots that I'll get to later in the policy that they gave some feedback on, but they did talk about their desire, every one of them shared their desire to have more discussions together so they could achieve better consistency across the system, which I think the committee will be pleased to hear, because was one of the major goals of this. I could walk through every one of these bullets one by one if you would like, or we could just stop at this point if there's any questions or discussions about the bullets at the bottom of page 1 and the top of page 2.
Don't go through each one of them, so, because the majority of us have already gone through it, so we'll just take questions from board members that might have some specific questions about specific items. Yes, sir.
What specifically, did you talk to high school principals, middle school principals?
I'm particularly interested in bullet 3, clothing must cover undergarments with the exception of waistbands and straps.
I got 0 feedback on that particular item, Dr. Avery.
None of them had any problem with it.
No.
Yes, Will?
So, I'm again not in support of that, of showing waistbands. I don't think we're in the line of fashion for schools. I believe we're there to prepare them to get a job, and I can tell you that kids walking in with waistbands are not gonna get a job. So, I have great concerns with this. I've talked to several kids. I've talked to even a couple of principals about it, and I just don't think it's appropriate.
Yeah, what did the principals have to say to you about it?
It's gonna be challenging. They already have this problem.
Yes,
So for me, I think that we, give our kids a lot of leeway with our dress code, and I don't think that our expectation in our dress code is that they are dressing as they would for a job interview. I don't think that's like the general goal here. And for me, when we say waistbands, it's a dog whistle for young black men, and so it concerns me to be worried about waistbands when we're trying to keep as much instructional time as we possibly can for all of our kids. So,
I sort of agree with that, but I sort of disagree because, and I've talked to other people, and me being an African-American male, that's somewhat as a deterrent, I think. When you see someone walking down the hallway with their waist, their pants down below their waist, showing their waistbands.
I'm sorry, a deterrent from?
Deterrent from the school atmosphere itself.
And I was just gonna add that I've been told that girls too, right?
Right.
So to me, this isn't any particular person. Doesn't matter if you're girls. I've heard girls tell me, yeah, they're showing their underwear type and you know what they're wearing, and I just don't think it's appropriate. But I just wanted to highlight, I'm not for boys or girls, it's just any.
I don't think they should be showing their waistbands either. I tell my boys to pull them up all the time. My point is that if you're gonna show the waistband, why did you stop there? That's the reason I wanted to have the discussion. That if you can only show the waistband, what some students are dropping down below the waistband. And I just wanted to stimulate the discussion in that I don't want my boys having their pants hanging down. And I'm constantly telling them to pull them up. And in the discussion in the policy meeting is, I finally said, Todd, you're gonna tell them, pull them up the same way I am. And I think you said, yeah, the principal's gonna tell them to pull them up. And that's where I am on it, that I don't think that I want my boys to say, hey, it's in the policy, I can wear them here, and if you start letting them have the waistband, they're gonna start showing 2 inches of the underwear.
And then I think the discussion that we had in the policy committee meeting would be, yeah, then the principal or whoever would tell them to
Would
pull them
pull
up.
'em
You
up.
know?
So
Right,
at
but
what point do you pull 'em up?
That's why the language is written this way, is so
If it's below the waistband.
that's where the,
But
that's where
what's,
the line is.
The waistband is the waistband.
Yeah.
How far does it go?
You were
How far
talking
does
about
it-
your boys having the waistband sewn in, so I'm just
I know
confused
it.
because I feel like.
Oh, they
you
do, they have pants,
are
I don't
totally-
buy them, but they have wanted them to where you can see boxers sewn in. And that's the reason I forced a discussion on it, at what point
Well, I'm glad I have
does
a
the
recording of it.
waistband,
Okay.
if it goes
Okay.
below the waistband, what's special about the waistband versus an inch below the waistband? At some point, you gotta say
Because
no.
you have to have a boundary, so waistband is.
Well, the
waistband.
boundary is above the waistband.
Okay.
It's changed a little bit from the policy meeting. We could go back and listen to the recording, so say what you said again.
I agree, when you hear the recording, you're gonna hear me saying, because I kept saying 2 inches down below the waistband. And it was where is the boundary? And I still don't see if you're gonna say they can show the waistband, why will you not let them show 2 inches below the
So
waistband?
you would rather them be able to show more of their
No,
underwear?
I'll be honest, I don't.
That's
But
what
if
you
you're
said
gonna,
in policy.
but if you're gonna let them show the waistband, let them show more.
Well, I disagree with that. I think a little edge of something showing, it should not be a reason for somebody to get dress coded and pulled out of their classroom. And that's sort of where I land on it. You know, I think parents are certainly welcome, right, to have their kids dress
Absolutely.
however they would like. You know, I think the fact that Dr. Wirt asked a bunch of principals and they weren't concerned about this makes me feel even more okay about it.
Mhm.
So, I have not heard any data that kids are getting sent home because they're showing waistband. Is that happening? Are we sending kids home because
I
of
mean,
that?
in general, our data would say that we have very few dress code violations that are recorded as a discipline issue.
Yeah, because I just wanted to squish that, because that's what I've heard too, is that they don't send people home for that. They may say, pull your shirt out, or something to that effect, not, you're gonna be sent home. I just don't wanna make sure.
I wasn't suggesting that, I was suggesting
Yeah.
pulling children out of class to have a conversation with them just disrupts the educational.
But there's no cases of that. I'm just pointing out, I haven't heard that that's an issue.
So what I like about this whole section is that it is the affirmative list of like, these things are okay, so like, don't bother thinking about whether or not this is okay, this is okay. And so I like that this is included on the list because we're being explicit about waistbands and bra straps being on it.
Yeah. We had an extensive conversation about that, at our meeting. And we left the room with everybody on one accord.
Would it be possible,
So-
Madam Chair, to, go ahead, please.
Go on, tell me.
Well, maybe to go through the rest of it and see if there's
Yeah.
any other issues
Yeah.
with it, and then and if anybody has any other, and then we can just know that that's the one question that we need to,
Mhm.
because then that would be the one question that would be left, and you can see
Right.
where 4, 3, or 5, or
Right.
2, or wherever you land on that.
Correct.
So, I think that would be maybe helpful.
I think it would be.
Maybe get some positive momentum.
We'll get some. Let's hit some other points.
Sure.
If we have any concerns.
The next major section is section A. You can see it was retitled to enforcement. The general, I'm certain that you've read this, the general idea here is that staff members, the committee decided to remove grooming from the language, as this policy is primarily focused on the dress of students. We certainly assist students with grooming. We have a variety of staff that do that when needed. But that if a staff member identifies a concern about a dress code, they'd refer that to administration. The administrator designee who has the concern should be the same gender identity as the student if practicable. The administrator designee should discuss the concern out of earshot of other students to the extent practicable. Again, the administrator designee will not ask a student to identify their gender, but will make every reasonable effort to ensure their comfort throughout the process. I thought the committee worked really hard on that language, and it landed in a really good place. The administrator designee discussing a dress code violation with a student should present options that they can see. And that school-directed changes to a student's attire should be least restrictive and disruptive to the student's school day. Any school dress code enforcement action should minimize the potential loss of educational time. So this one in general was about, in my opinion, trying to be sensitive to a student's feelings in this moment, make every effort possible to match the gender of our administrator with the gender identity of the student when practicable, and honestly to just use some common sense when you're talking to a student about what could be a sensitive dress code issue, that you try to just use some care and preserve kind of the dignity of students. The only feedback that I got here is one that in some of our elementary schools there are very few male staff members, which could just present some challenges sometimes when we're trying to do that. And then the other, which I thought was thoughtful feedback from a high school principal, was just sometimes there's a dress code issue, like a female administrator that may be just telling a young man to take his hat off in the classroom. Like, are there moments where as an administrator they could use some kind of common sense in that moment where it's not maybe some of where we initially go with a dress code violation, but something that's kind of simple, like, hey Jonathan, remove your hat in class. So I think they were just seeking, like, are there some moments where we can use common sense? I think they understand the thinking behind this, but that was really some of the feedback about this section.
Could it be reasonable, just sort of hearing the nods of board members, that the word if practicable, that could be used if it's just a momentary take your hat off, that instead of having to go get somebody at the office to then come down and address the person, that's the common sense thing. So I mean, I think that's probably good to do that. And the other piece just was just at the top of that page, that the policy has always had the language that individual schools can add additional examples that are right within the terms and concepts set forth in the policy. And the policy committee wanted to say, if that happens, it already requires the approval of the superintendent and the consultation of the board attorney. So those would be limited, because the board's always wanted there to be as much consistency as possible, and the policy committee added, and with notice to the board. Any more
questions about page 2?
No, I think we're good.
Great. In the last section there was retitled to applicability. And this was about making what I thought is a good strong statement about that we would apply this fairly and consistently without regard to race, gender identity, body type was an add by the committee, or other inherent traits or characteristics. Principals or designees may make reasonable accommodations for religious, educational, medical, or disability-related reasons, and for cultural celebrations. And then the last section there that I think is pretty self-explanatory.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Everybody seem good with all of that? Okay, so there's that positive momentum that's happened.
Yeah, right.
So now we're just back to that one piece, and just turn it back over to you, Madam Chair, to see whether anybody has additional feedback on it, on that.
And do we have any additional feedback on this clothing must cover undergarments with the exception of waistbands and straps?
So in keeping with the general philosophy, does all of you agree clothing must cover undergarments, as a starting point, without we getting into the exception, so that's.
Well, I do accept for waistbands
Right,
and bra straps.
gotcha.
Yeah, right.
Understood. Alright, so it's just that phrase,
Yeah.
just trying to keep all the common points, so just that phrase, and so, back to you, does
Okay,
anybody
so-
want any more feedback on that?
Yeah. Well, all that we can do at this point is either pass it or not.
Right.
All right.
And it can be a motion to approve it as written, and if that doesn't happen, then there can be a motion to approve it with a revision, in whichever way that the board wishes to proceed.
Motion to approve it as written.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed?
Nay.
So, the first reading fails, and so it's, of course, now we're gonna have to do approve as revision.
Well, if somebody would have to make a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve this with removal of the waistband exception, keeping the straps.
Keep the straps?
Keep the straps.
I don't have an issue with that.
Clothing must cover undergarment with the exception of straps. That's the way
Can
we
we
read.
say bra straps?
Are there others?
No.
There's
I
jock
don't
straps.
understand, you know.
There's jock straps, I'm just saying.
Well, that's a good point. So
So
one of
bra
the
straps.
straps would be
Y'all are worried
involved.
about waistbands.
So
Yeah,
it's-
we
We
don't,
want jock straps.
I don't know, because things change so much.
That's
Well,
where
that's why I'm
we're
asking
getting
the
so
question.
specific on what, that sometimes it comes down to common sense.
Yeah.
Right.
Interesting that you would say that.
So you got, that's a motion?
Is that bra straps or just
Bra
straps?
straps.
With bra straps,
Bra
okay.
straps.
So with the exception of bra straps, and this would be first reading, is that right, Dr. Ward?
Yes, the first reading.
Okay.
That's a
Uh-huh.
motion, I second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, so that we approve first reading with that change. Thank you. All right, now, if, could I trouble someone to read? This, oh, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry. What do you call it, executive privilege? Point of privilege. Our superintendent is gonna take a point of privilege at
No
this-
report from me.
No, yeah. Okay.
I'll take his time. Thank you, Madam Chair. This June will mark the end of my 4th year serving as your superintendent. It's been one of the greatest honors and responsibilities I've experienced in my life. I've served this community and given my absolute best to improve the education of all students in Orange County. Together, we've put in place a strong organizational and instructional foundation that will lead to high achievement and equitable outcomes for our students. After a lot of prayer and reflection and discussions with my wife and trusted advisors, I've decided to resign as superintendent effective June 30th, 2019. It's time for me to pursue other career interests and explore new opportunities that will allow me to continue to have an impact on students and educators. I'll forever be grateful to the Board of Education members, both past and present, that hired me and entrusted me with the leadership of the school system. This is a special community that cares deeply about public education. I'm thankful for the relationships and strong collaboration that I've experienced with County Manager Hammersley and Sheriff Charles Blackwood, along with so many other community leaders. I'm most grateful for the work of our district and school leaders, teachers, teacher assistants, and all of our support staff across the system. The commitment and dedication of the Orange County Schools team is second to none. Traditional superintendent resignation letters include a lengthy list of accomplishments and justifications of my time as your leader. I know the great work of our staff and that they've done, but the most important and profound work that happens each day is that of the incredible teachers, teacher assistants, support staff, bus drivers, and child nutrition staff. I can never begin to capture the magnitude of their work in a letter, so simply put, they're amazing and they've responded each time we've asked them to change. I'll continue to be a resident, a parent, and an active supporter of public education in this community and look forward to watching our positive trajectory as the school system continue with new leadership. I'm committed to fully dedicating myself to my responsibilities here as superintendent until my final day in the system. Thank you, Ms. Stevens.
All right, thank you, Dr. Wirt. So, now I will, who will read the, motion to go into closed session? Do you have it? Do you have it?
You ready?
Yes, sir.
Make a motion, we go into closed session pursuant to North Carolina General Statutes 143-318.11A1, and A6 to consult with the attorney as needed to preserve the attorney-client privilege, to consider confidential personnel matters, and to prevent the disclosure of personnel information that is privileged or confidential under North Carolina General Statutes 115C-319, and student information that is confidential under the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act 20 U.S.C. 1232G, and to discuss with the board attorney a pending lawsuit in the case of Jerome Seymour versus Orange County Board of Education et al., 18 CVS 1029.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. We're now in closed session. Well,